Yes, good morning, viewer, from wherever you are and wherever you are, from whichever platform you are following us. Kampala is a beautiful morning, but it is a very tricky morning. Last time we were talking about the temperatures having slumped. Today has gone even down further than that. We are between 19 and by the close of the day, the warmest will be, I think, 25. So it is a very tricky weather today in Kampala. It is still drizzling. For those who didn't come out early, they may be at least trapped. Now, after that, you again expect heavy traffic on the road. So if you are traveling within or coming to town, those are some of the factors that you need to consider. At the same time, it's a nice weather, and it will be going so for the next 4 days. So you have to brace for a cold Christmas for those who are going to be celebrating it. But at the same time, I think it will be a nice holiday for those who will be involved. We have had a number of cases of accidents, unfortunately, and those who are traveling more. So when now that is raining, please be conscious of the road use. In studio today, as usual, I have my co-panelists. I have Ndugu Rugarama, and also I have Sister Takali. Now, Takali, for the last 2 weeks, has not been with us. She will be telling us where she has been maybe mobilizing for Christmas. My name is James Mututa, and I'm here to go with you all the way for the next 1 or 2 hours also, because we're expecting that the president will be also talking to the people of Uganda at some point later, and when it happens, we will let you know when that will happen. And also we're expecting some message also from the Parliament of Uganda. So when they happen, you will be the first to know. Meanwhile, in the studio today, we'll be looking at a number of issues. One of them, I think, will be following up on the African heads of state visit to the US, and also look at the other issues that actually are impacting the socio, economic, and political developments of the continent of Africa. But before we got that, let me also have the glance of the week in the African perspective from my colleagues who are already in the studio with me today. And together with us, we also have a very strong team behind the cameras and the production, and we appreciate the work that you guys are doing to ensure that the information goes out there to the people of this continent, to the people of Africa. Ndugu Rugarama, how has been your week as you have been through in the African perspective?
Good morning, comrades. My brother, Comrade Mututa, Sister Rachel Takari, with me here in the studio, the UBC fraternity, and all you viewers, wherever you are viewing us from, Merry Christmas in advance, and Happy New Year. I think we shall go into Christmas, then come back when it is, when we are through with this Christmas period, but not New Year. New Year also, probably.
Now that you mentioned it, in fact, I have been keeping myself so tight. I didn't want to talk about it, but now that you have brought it,
what are you afraid of the new year?
No, I'm not even afraid of the new year, because years come and years go, and we count years as we grow. Now, what he brought in, which I was, because already the outgoing team on the set were talking of how has been your Christmas, these things of yours here, and I was like, you know what, Christmas actually not an African thing.
It is not.
and if Africans were very serious people, I'm not saying they are not serious, we wouldn't be celebrating Christmas.
That's a huge debate. Comrade Mututa is taking us in some circles here. But we are going to be moving on eggshells. But let me just very quickly go through the week. My week has not been a nice one.
Oh, you're avoiding that one. Okay, you are now back
Yes.
into your week.
My week has not been a nice one. Those of you who have been watching my status, you know these days social media and that kind of stuff. The technology. I lost my uncle, the second born to our grandfather, a man that managed Wanyankwere Kweterana Cooperative Society then, a Department of Transport. He revolutionized that sector, a man that influenced and impacted positively the coffee growing, processing and trading in Ankwere region. The person that was at the forefront with other colleagues in as far as Wanyankwere Kweterana as it was then is remembered. He died at 85 years and we buried him yesterday in Shema municipality, Itendero, Kabohe Itendero, to be specific.
Oh, that was bad.
And it was very, very, very unfortunate. I would want to thank the team that was with us and the family, nucleus and extended, for having been with us, and they are still with us in that very difficult moment. If I had, of course, extra time, I would talk about this man, but suffice to say that like the retired Chief Justice Bat Katurebe once said at a requiem mass of a 20-year-old girl that lost her life, that it is the essence, the lesson is not in the death of somebody, but us who are still living, the lessons we take from such a death.
Sure.
So I have the comfort in the fact that in the death of Uncle Muhumuza Gemaria, we have got so many lessons to take. So that at that level, that's what I would want to state. Only that also to look at this week as a week that has been punctuated with a number of accidents, which is very worrying. On our road, Masaka and Mbarara, we have registered quite a number of them. And at the same time, we also lost on the eastern route Honorable Foserere and his dear wife. Of course, there are those other accidents that are not, don't come into the mainstream media, but the state of our roads and the users is also worrying. I think we need to do a lot of civic sensitization on how to use the roads. At the same time also to emphasize and look at the black spots and make sure that we do increased police patrol. I have seen, because I was coming from Western, that they increased the presence of police roadblocks. But again, I don't know why the accidents are not coming down.
Yeah, because police are the ones that are not the ones controlling the drivers. You
okay,
know, when
it
comes to road use.
And maybe the roads are also not, I don't know, but there is an element. They say that our roads are not made to the standard that even when it rains, there is a way our level, the quality of our roads is compromised by such a natural happening like rain. Now I wonder how that one...
What about people who drive on ice?
That is another thing now.
Anyway,
Probably.
Rachel,
so that's...
How was your week?
Well, the week was fine actually. I think for me one of the more important pieces of news in this country has been the rather confident note struck by Dr. Acheng, as well as the President, concerning having full control of the Ebola situation. I think that is a relief to most of us. And at the same time, there's been a resurgence of COVID in different parts of the world, most notably China. So there is a concern that the spillovers may actually make their way back. Maybe not necessarily to Africa, but to different parts of the world. So that's an ongoing concern.
The Nigerians say, God forbid.
Oh well. So accordingly, the president was keen to let us know that masks are not out of fashion and so on and so on. The SOPs are also still a good thing. But I think there was not so much clarity concerning exactly when the measures he first announced a number of weeks ago, concerning when we would have to present our certificates and so on. I'm not seeing any action on that front. Are you?
Just move with your certificate.
Oh well.
So that
I have not heard anyone ask for it.
God, when that time comes, that when you need to present it.
Anyway, I'm not looking forward to that, and I'm not saying, you know, it should happen faster. But what we are saying is that we are moving alongside these events.
Yeah.
In other words, they're concurrent. We can no longer say that COVID will forever be a thing of the past. In fact, people continue to succumb to COVID.
Sure.
So that aside, I think for me another piece of information that we're already experiencing, but which was committed to paper, and I think even treated more seriously in other places, is that Uganda is definitely not doing well economically.
And not only Uganda. The good thing is that the bad thing is that not only Uganda, but the other good thing is that, and I think I heard, was it President Museveni or the President of Ghana was talking? I think it was President Museveni was talking about when they were in the US that the good thing that Africa can pride of itself in is that at least we have food, that we cannot fail to get food. But
well, I think that
when you are sick, sometimes you may not even be able to get the food or to make the food. But
so I think this one comes to remind us that tough times lie ahead. No one can. I don't think anybody is able to sugarcoat the fact that we are really not out of the woods.
Sure.
Like the Americans would say.
That's true.
And one of the things that is sobering is that the trade deficit of this country is really something that is not. It's a very stubborn barrier to development in this country. And they talked about our exports are a mere about $5 million, a mere $5 million. Whereas our imports are at least twice. Yeah.
Yeah, that has been the spell of most of the African countries.
So that situation, I heard a local government, one of the local governments, and I think it must have been the cow, and she was saying, please, civil servants, brace yourselves. Your pay for December will come next month. So what we are saying is that even as we head to this festive season,
yes,
we must be mindful that there are tough times ahead. There's no need to overspend.
But one was saying, I think it was the Archbishop of Church of Uganda was saying, you don't have to spend a lot of money on eating because just around the corner you have the fees. And which is also another stressful, stressful factor for families. And someone said, "Chibi mogela late," but it is important that you know.
Really?
It is important you know that amidst all this, we need to do the rationing. Look, I mean, again, don't bring it back to Christmas, please. But you.
So you have a particular grievance.
Why should people eat like they are not eating tomorrow?
Well, it's a sign of celebration, you know.
But what celebration is that you can celebrate and then you end up on all this? What I'm saying is that we need to celebrate fine, but we also, of course, after 2 years of lockdowns, and then we have another year where things are not working very well, economy is doing not very well, we have all reason to celebrate. But do we have to celebrate against all odds? I think there must be.
In Uganda, if you will indulge me, Comrade Mututa, it's not just a Ugandan thing. I think, generally speaking, on the African continent, because of how we have been culturalized, through the ages of colonialism, our appetite to spend is always high. Now, it doesn't matter how we get the money, the resources, as long as you finally get it, there is always high appetite to spend, and that is the dilemma, part of the dilemma of the African man.
Yeah, but I
including
think
things to do with Christmas.
high spending would be a problem. I think I'll indulge.
On what?
I will indulge.
That's the most
But I
important.
think also
spend on
I would
what?
indulge her because she at least was in one of these places where people can buy even anything as long as it is that period. When
But
it comes to
also,
Easter,
even before you talking about, it is a human thing, by the way.
exactly.
The reasons for the spending differ from society to society, because the Muslims also have their spending seasons. And of course, the Chinese, they have this, they go crazy during
For
the
them it's
Chinese,
even worse,
the lunar
yes.
year and so on. I think it's a human thing. This lack of restraint is not an African thing. It is a
Exactly.
human thing. But even then, I think it's something we should struggle against.
Again, the most important thing is to plan for it, to have plan for it.
Just have
That's-
to look at what you spend, where would you have gotten it?
Exactly.
See, the point is our expenditure, because when you spend the little that you have earned and earned painfully, to the extent that when you forecast the month or so ahead of you will be calling for greater spending, and yet you don't have.
Yeah,
You see?
I like my villagers here. I think they're a bit more organized, because by January they are looking for money to buy bulls that they will fatten over time, that when it comes to Christmas time they will have enough stock of meat in their homes, and the rest then they can look around. Then you know those ones have prepared.
Do you join them? You don't want Christmas. Do you join them eating this meat?
Not that I don't want Christmas.
Society is society. It will force you.
I'm saying with Africans we must have something to celebrate about other than Christmas, because first of all, Christmas is not ours.
Okay.
We don't have anything to do with it, but because of the commercialization of the global commercialization and religious commercialization, these things have found themselves into our lives.
You'll buy a Christmas tree.
But that aside, I think, Mr. Mututa, that one is a very slippery slope. For the simple reason, there are countless things that are not ours that we have fully internalized.
Yeah, that's why I'm
so
saying.
how can we unpack?
We need, and more are coming, and we need to do this thing
Let
with a
us
lot
start
of.
with what we are experiencing, the season in which we are now. It is Christmas.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what we are suggesting.
No,
Let's
no,
start
about
with
Christmas.
that one.
Exactly. We did not need to have these things in our homes in the first place.
Okay.
But the celebration is that we are ending the year, blah, blah. But someone shouldn't tell us that we are celebrating it because it's a religious vice. No. It is like end of ours.
Okay.
But it's not a
Mr.
religious
Mututa.
thing, gentlemen and lady.
The region you come from, can you think of one occasion that if, for example, you are the power that be, that you would say that one is the time that the people of my region should, rally around other than Christmas? Can you think of one?
At least for us, we have circumcision.
But circumcision is not a religious right.
No,
Or is it?
I'm not talking about a religious. When you're talking about religious
It's
right,
a cultural practice.
yes,
So that one would really be front and
Exactly.
center in your regime.
yes, because these things are also traditionally finally found themselves in the religion. But this even worse, circumcision is better. Gentlemen and lady, what you are looking at today are many other things other than that. And we said at the beginning that at one point the president will be addressing the nation, and when it happens, we'll let our viewers know, and then we'll give way for that broadcast. There will be another broadcast that will be coming our way from Parliament, and when that happens also, we'll let you know if we are still on set. Now, we are looking, last time we were talking about this issue of African heads being in the US at the invitation, you can call it at the summon of the American president or the American government to discuss a number of issues, and we could later on he heard of the things that they discussed about the relationship between Africa and the United States of America. So today I think we'll be summarizing on that. What are the take homes from this interaction between the African heads of state and the American establishment? Rachel, I think you have something on that.
I was thinking about this thing, and I left my meditation in a worse place than where I began.
I like that.
I'll tell you why. This Mr. Biden, the President of the United States, since he came to office, he has visited the Middle East, he has been to Europe, he has been to Asia, he has not been to Africa.
He has promised to come.
That's not good enough. And I was also thinking along the same lines. When will there be a day when the Asian whatever summit is held in Washington, D.C., or the Middle East Summit is held in Washington, D.C., or the European Summit being held in Washington, D.C.? Do you see just how disempowered this group is?
And disrespectful.
You say you're looking, one of the things they stated, the State Department, it said one of the aims is to have, you know, to boost this thing of mutual interests. Which mutual interests? And also talking about mutual respect. This is disrespectful. You say you need me and that I am the future. Why don't you come to my house? Why do I have to come to yours? I think that tells you where this so-called thing is going. They talked about resetting the relationship. That is a lie. Talk about this, look at the agenda. They said day one focused on civil society, and by extension private relationships, private actors and so on. Why? Why is civil society the first thing that you engage? Is it not to perpetuate the old agenda? Then you said the second day, now there you pretended. You said this one is about trade and investment. Again, the same actors. You're pushing the private sector ahead of national actors. The third day, now you say, oh, what is the third day about? They say now they tried there to pretend that it's now led. What we are trying to say is that this is not a reset, is really what I'm trying to say. They're exactly where we were 50 years ago, 100 years ago, trying just to get in and get all they can the rest, and sit on the can. It is disappointing, the fact that the second Africa-America summit They talked about trade and investment, they talked about human rights, they talked about democracy, they talked about health. Actually, at that time, it was more sinister, because they were pushing for the homosexuality agenda, so that was even worse. But I think this time around, they have not pronounced that particular side. So what we're trying to say is that the groundwork, and I hope our African leaders see that these people are exactly where they left them. For them, their interests are permanent.
Yeah, because for me, like you are saying, I wouldn't have a big problem with these heads of states leaving Africa to go to Washington, because maybe they also enjoy some of that.
Was it voluntary?
That trip. But like you are saying, was there no better way of having it on the African continent? I mean, does African continent have the cockroaches and the insects that will not allow this meeting to take place? But also that the benefits from this meeting we shall live to see, because my worry is that first of all, you are calling these people, when talking of, you're calling the heads of state at the time when Congress is in recess. You are calling them at the time when America has just gone through another turbulent election of the senators and the rest. People are actually exhausted, tired, and some of them have lost.
Midterm.
Yes, after the midterm. And then, because most of the things that you are going to assure this $55 billion, this the $2 billion, is what Congress approves. That will be done for Africa. And like one was also saying, couldn't there have been a better way of these African heads of state sitting down with the members anything about Africa? They have never been to
Africa.
Africa.
They're not interested.
Exactly, and they're not interested. So wasn't it better to have...
they make decisions.
Exactly, they make decisions, because
so where's the research?
one moves from Arizona and comes to, because has made a very good campaign there, is elected, comes to Washington and is appointed a member of the Committee of Foreign Affairs of the United States, and is now taking decisions that will affect many of us on the African continent, but doesn't know anything about Egypt, doesn't know anything about Uganda, doesn't know anything about, and is taking decisions. So wasn't it better to have these people also in some of these meetings, that the African heads of state will maybe sit down with the Speaker of Parliament or of the House, or with some of the members of Congress to look at some of the issues that affect Africa vis-a-vis the United States. But at the same time, we are not saying that this was completely a useless venture, but you also look at the spirit, because when you see some of these pronouncements that we are now going to spend more than $55 billion on Africa for the next 5 years, because this is already something which was passed for disbursement by the Congress. So what is new? Now, when you look at that, it is also important that, of course, I think President Biden also did commit that he will be pushing for the permanent seat on the Security Council, and also I think there's something that he also promised. And
we asked for 2, not
exactly.
1.
Yeah. So
G20.
And then the G20, because then the African Union will be among to join the G20 to make the G21. Now, when you look at all of this, there are all positives that we have achieved, but was there a better way of doing that other than that? Ndukuru Garama, I will have your take on that.
My observation is that America will find it extremely difficult to maintain the level of arrogance she has had over the years. The reason being that for a number of years now, the last Sino-China, Sino-Africa, I think, trade summit that took place in Cairo, and that is the summit that usually assesses our trade relations with China, Africa and China. And the analysis that has been done over time has confirmed that China has gained extremely very high ground compared to other jurisdictions like Europe and America, in as far as the trade with Africa is concerned. It therefore tells you that Africa is no longer tied to, extremely tied, if I may use that word, to the old colonial bearings that used to be there where we almost had no alternative. That some of the pacts, for instance, like the continuation of colonialism, or pact that was signed between France and the 14 former French countries, is gradually being undermined because of the entry of some of the countries like India, China, among others. It therefore speaks to the aggressiveness and the new wisdom that is now being experienced by the African leaders, the heads of state, when you get to know that, for instance, America can call the African leaders, yes, but tomorrow China will also invite the African leaders, Russia will invite the African leaders. Now, that there is no pride in our heads of states being summoned in that manner. We are not saying that we are happy that that is happening. But you see, we are not short, we are not dead to the fact that although that is not correct, there is something being done about it. Because you can see that Africa is progressively coming up with institutions to be able to meaningfully engage with these other partners. Because see, for us, we are not going to wish America away. We are not going to wish China away. We are not going to wish India or Russia away. These are powers that have been there, and they will want to do anything humanly possible to maintain and extend their tentacles and grip on the African continent. Now, we are lucky in the sense that when you are a young lady and you have got so many suitors coming around, then you can sit back and take a decision. Now, what does so and so bring on the table? Where does so and so bring on the table? I'm not saying that in the long run you may not make a mistake, but at least you have a choice. Africa has a choice. Now, when you look again at the kind of antagonism that is being experienced, some of these fights that we are having, for instance, the direct fights that we have between NATO and Russia, those who support Russia, the big wings, big boys, and those, of course, the NATO allies. You realize that everybody is trying to quote Africa. Now, in that case, Africa sits back and makes rational decisions. Say, okay, now, where do I benefit from? The agenda and the conversation, and this is very important, if you permit me, Comrade Mtuta, this is very important. The kind of, and my sister Rachel talked about the agenda. I can assure you America is going to find a very big problem in the sense that as long as they still think that they can maintain a one-sided agenda, they develop the agenda, they do not share it, they do not invite the views of the person they are calling for a meeting, and they think that they are going to come up with policies, and then they throw the policies on the African continent, and they say, you go with that, after all, we are giving you the money for which you are going to be implementing this policy. That may not work. Why? We now have alternative sources where we can pick the money. We may say, but that's not good enough. You are only talking about where you can pick the money. Why don't you generate your own money? In the long run, because you see, like the Chinese say, a distance of 1,000 miles is started by one step. Now, I may not know at how many steps we are now, but I can assure you that Africa has taken steps to address some of the challenges that used to dog Africa as a continent, and we are somewhere anytime soon like the mathematicians say, time t will come, you will see that gradually, progressively, some of these challenges, we have overcome them.
Yeah, because what the other argument, like she was putting it, did we push for anything as Africans that we achieved?
In that summit, you mean?
Yes.
Well, of course, we have considered here that we are talking about Africa
on the Security
being
Council.
admitted on the Security Council. Our asking were 2 slots. But even giving you 1 slot, I'm not sure it is going to happen.
And then
But remember, it's not country. It's
a continent.
It's a continent.
Exactly.
So really, that is also not very
But that's
good.
what we are saying, Irocho. You see, I can understand your anger. I share your anger. But at the same time, there is how I want to view this. That you see, in any situation, challenging as it may,
exactly.
there will always be concessions that you could say, you see, now I'm okay, at least let me first move with this one. Now, if we can have even 1 slot like this, as and with veto power, like that China has vetoed, Britain, France, America, they also have veto as African country. You see?
Sure.
Or continent rather. But at the same time, if we talk about the G20 and then we say G20 21, what is done in that G20? What is done in the G21? What are the benefits that are going to accrue to the African continent? But most importantly, this constant knocking at the door as we enter into Christmas period, and I think the Bible is very instructive about that. Keep knocking and the door will be opened. Sometimes I think from the Pan-African point of view that keep knocking. If the door is not going to be opened for you, then you crash into the room.
Are you going to crash?
No, not me. I don't know about him.
But
he's
when
he feels good about this.
Yeah,
people.
but we also look at it in terms of that one is a benefit. Even if you got one saying if you are escaping from a total complete darkness, you cannot complain of a small light. That we can have something to begin with as Africa, and if we can have, even if it were one position and with the veto power, I think that will be very significant. But also got another one that finally the president of America agreed to come and visit Africa.
Not as if that is so important. His presence.
That's why I'm wondering why to you.
We had President Barack Obama. We had
was very symbolic.
Clinton came here, but you see,
because when you visit, actually, what
you hear this? You hear this? What we benefited from President Barack Obama, with all due respect, as somebody with whom we share the color, if you like, was expansion of the American territorial military presence in hitherto countries that never used to have some of these American bases. For instance, we had the extension of the American base in Ghana. They never used to be there because of the history of Ghana. That is what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah detested. But for the first time, when Barack Obama came onto the chair, he used the color bit of it, and there is an American base in Ghana now. And I can assure you that even when did AGOA come, if you remember that, but how much have we benefited from the AGOA? You see, of course, you will argue that it is partly the African program, because
that's what I was going to say.
If we have not benefited from the market that has been opened to the African continent, that you can go ahead and export all sorts of things, including cotton, because that window is there, then that is purely your problem. But those people also forget that we have got a bigger monster. Some of these policies, by the way, somebody, and especially the American society, what they do, they give you with the right hand, then they take with the left hand. And it is very not easy. It is not easy for our common eyes to see that certain impediments have been created to appear as if you have been given, but when in actual sense you have been denied. And that is why I am saying that Africa is on the move. Why do I say so? It is on the move because they looking at markets, the American markets, and praying and wishing that they can expand, and when they need to turn off or reduce, scare down the market, they will do it at will without consulting you. We instead now come up with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and increase the intra-trade within the African
Yeah, because
continent.
to me, that's the most important thing, because when you look at the American market, you know, by the way, it is very hard to satisfy the American market. The other time we were talking, I'm thinking one of the meetings, they were saying if they want a banana, they want a banana which is bent like this, which has this many, how many trims, which
certain degree of yellow.
Exactly.
This is
Now,
what I'm saying. They give you with the right hand, they take away with
Make
the
it
left
impossible.
hand.
Yeah.
They will even tell you that the quality, and that is why it has pained me that we have not looked at the GMOs. But anyway, we shall look at it. What happens is this. They will open a market, then they will give specifications of what exactly you must export. They will make sure
And the parent
that you
stock.
do
Yes,
not
you have to
meet
keep
the
records.
standards. They will knock you down on technical, on technical grounds that you have not met the standards to supply the American market. Now, some of you, and I believe this sister of mine, Rachel, was in America for quite a good time. We've moved to different continents. I can assure you, when you test majority of the foodstuffs there, pick a banana, test it, be it Asia or where, you cannot
eat
compare
it. Leave
what
alone.
we produce here with what you will actually consume the other side.
Rachel had something. But
Very organic.
Yes, along those very lines, because you asked a question, you said, well, did the Africans get anything out of an agenda? Did they even have an agenda? Or were they someone's guest and they were just biding their time for 2-3 days? Maybe others were on holiday.
that was also the other thing.
It is also possible. But I don't get the impression that they had a particularly strong stand on anything.
The only country that gives Africa an opportunity to make proposals when they are going to meet that I have known is China. They say, African Union, come with your position, or
But
different heads of states.
But as a result of that, because these are people who approached the negotiation table with a weak hand, we talk about the 55 billion is because not in terms of nature, but in terms of the $55 billion is nothing.
Absolutely.
For
It's
Africa,
peanuts.
it's nothing.
And over years,
Think about the fact. That is the disrespect.
Even if you brought it in 1 year,
That is the disrespect, the sustained demeaning of our leaders.
Sure.
And I don't know if they realize this. You know, you go with your flowing garb and your entourage and you think you're great. You're not great. You're being demeaned around the clock. Think that just the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. America, they passed a package on Tuesday. If it's approved by Congress or whoever, they will release a further 44 billion. But since February until now, in military aid alone, nearly 100 billion.
ask
For
yourself,
Ukraine alone.
Rachel, ask yourself how much is given to Israel. Israel, that tiny country, by America every year.
No, that aside, Egypt alone, in military aid,
Just to contain
it's
the...
over $1 billion. Just to contain,
No, they
to
give
make
10.
sure...
They give 10, should
Well,
be annual. 10,
That's what I'm
something
thinking.
like that.
But that is military aid alone.
alone,
So
yes.
when
From
it-
for one country.
yes,
And then you're talking
and
about...
to get their hardware.
So let's do a simple calculation
So
here.
this is nothing.
When you talk of 55 billion
Over 3 years?
Over 3 years, which means you are going to say about how much each year, and then divide that by about 50 countries.
But they're
over
giving
3
it as
years.
what? That's another thing.
That is why I say that these people, they're exactly where we were as the colonizer. They are still insulting our intelligence. They are still wasting our time. They are still pretending they're interested in our well-being. It is time to actually look for, like you were saying, to look for better suitors. These ones are time wasters. They have no business in our future.
But for
they
me,
need to
I
remain
think
in our past.
For me, I have no problem with them doing that, apparently.
Oh, wasting our time?
Yes.
Look at...
For you,
Yeah.
he put an example. If there's this young girl who wants a suitor, and is looked at Mututas, looked at Lugarama, and looked at some other people coming to her, and she doesn't even take an offense when they tickle her and just keep her there. I mean,
Let me tell you
we
where the
as the
danger is.
African countries should see this happening, should see this coming, and I liked, by the way, and I think next time we shall have his voice pop, the president of Ghana, who said, no one is going to respect you, even when he was in the US actually. He said, no one is going to respect you until you develop systems that will enable you stop begging.
And that is the long and the short. Because you're talking about there is no danger of time wasting. Yes, there is. Because you're occupying my space. You're occupying my brain power. I'm thinking there is a future here. And you know very well you're not taking me anywhere.
Move out.
That's why I began by saying, I don't know how many of these are leaders at games. You can't wake up. The last summit was in 2014. What have you been doing for 8 years? Has Africa gone away? Have our concerns somehow retreated?
Yeah, because
what have you been doing?
What you are raising is very cardinal. I would have expected someone from the State Department or from the White House, because those were now the two agencies that were involved, to come up and say, from the time we held this meeting, this is how far we have gone.
Why would they do that? This is a game. Why would they do that? If you're not going to marry this girl, you don't tell her anything meaningful.
Absolutely.
You give her a little sugar here, because you're not taking her anywhere. These people are not taking us anywhere. So for them it is Katemba paka last. But the tragedy is, are our people seeing through their games? That is really my point.
Exactly.
The long and the short is that when these serious suitors come, are we spending as much time with the serious suitors making serious programs, or are we spending time on a Katemba husband?
5 countries were denied access, entry or participation in this meeting of the heads of state that were there. For those countries that who had recently taken over government through coups, but also the others who they were said that the human rights were lacking.
Questionable.
Yeah, and my specific interest was with the South Africa. It was not denied, of course, but the president did not take part in the African summit. But of course, they would have expected him to be there, and but maybe he also had a number of a heavy baggage back at home.
Domestic issues.
And when we come back from the break, I think we'll start from there to look at, was it, these countries that were not allowed in miss anything? Did they take it serious? Is that going to change what they have been involved in before this summit?
That hypocrisy.
They missed nothing. This is Katemba.
That American hypocrisy, it will come to an end. There's
Because
nothing
if you
like
have,
missing.
if you admit El Sisi, the man who defeated a true democratic win, because you financed him to defeat and overthrow democracy in Egypt.
That's the
Who are you to
hypocrisy
be
we are
telling
talking
me
about,
that
yes.
Burkina Faso don't come, you overthrew? Guinea don't come? Liars.
When we come
Absolutely.
back from the break, viewer will be following up on some of these questions that are lingering here about the hypocrisy and about the double standards that we experience, especially as the African continent, when it comes to the friends and our brothers, big brothers, that are here in most cases telling us of help and promising us all these good things on the planet Earth. Don't go away. We are still with you for the next 1 hour, so please stay with us. Just after the break, we shall come back. Thank you.
It's better to foster respect instead of fear and pain.
Cause a good school equals a better life.
Raising voices.
Get yourself a Zuku TV decoder and satellite dish today at a low price of only 105,000 Ugandan shillings, and a Zuku decoder at only 60,000 Ugandan shillings, and enjoy your favorite movies, series, kids entertainment, music, local and international news, and lots more. Enjoy amazing packages like Zuku Smart Plus, Zuku Classic, Zuku Premium, and Zuku Asia. Get connected today. Zuku, life got better.
It's our mission to secure your money.
Protecting your money is as important as earning it. It is for this reason that the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, DPF, was established by the government of Uganda to provide deposit protection to customers of regulated financial institutions. In the unlikely event that your commercial bank, credit institution, or microfinance deposit-taking institution fails, the DPF will pay you up to 10 million Uganda shillings. Keep your personal information such as national identification number, mobile phone, or an alternative bank account updated with your banker. Terms and conditions apply. For more information, contact DPF at Aha Towers, Plot 7 Lodell Road, Kampala. Call 0312-206-400 or visit our website at www.dpf.or.ug.
We are the DPF. We protect your money. Protection Fund of Uganda.
It's a new world. We are going global. A new world of greater connectivity. From Entebbe to Dubai, London, Mumbai, and Guangzhou. Welcome aboard a great new experience. Uganda Airlines.
Paul, this is such a big investment.
Yes, but life is even a greater investment.
Our doctors recommend Hemofort to help in quick recovery.
Hemofort is a medical syrup that's recommended for people of all ages, pregnant women, and people from all lines of work. Hemofort syrup helps the body's growth of red blood cells. It contains iron, vitamins, folic acid, and other essential elements necessary to keep both children and adults healthy and active. Hemofort. Build a fort around your family today. Keep all medicines away from children. If symptoms persist, consult your doctor.
In chess, the small one can become the big one. It's the same here. And here too. Watch every move. Record every number so you can plan better. No matter the size of your dream, tomorrow's success belongs to those who keep today's records clean. File your returns today.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
Yes, welcome back, viewer, from that break, and the time we left for the break, we're talking about how Africa needs to position herself if it's to benefit from these global coatings from US, from China, from Russia, from wherever the coating is coming from. But are we making use of this coating really? Maybe yes, or maybe not. So the panelists here with me to talk about this and see how much can we go, how much can we benefit from this coating. And Nduguru Garama, you were talking about this young girl who has to look at all these possible suitors. But 80 years later on, the suitor comes back and says, hey, are you still there? And wants to meet you, and you are all over the place telling everyone how you are going to meet this suitor. Isn't the problem with you?
I think Sister Rachel here brought it out very well, that it becomes very unfortunate for somebody in a relationship not to take stock and make a review and then take a decision upon the analysis that has been made. Our relationship with America has not started yesterday.
Sure.
We know that it has been on for a very long time. Now, it was one-sided, and I'm not sure that it has since changed drastically from being one-sided. The unfortunate part is that Africa is no longer having one suitor, and that is unfortunate on the side of countries like America. That the superpower it has been, she's been a superpower, but her power is on the decline. Her influence to Africa is on the decline. The other influencers like China, Russia, India, forget about the European Union, because they are just extensions of America, are also there. So therefore, the narrative is the kind of conversations that we have always, Africa has always had with America, has been impacted on. And there is a sizable chunk that has been taken away from America in terms of trade and in terms of other policies, macro in nature, that have shaped the African agenda for a very long time.
Sure.
So much has changed that if, for instance, it were not for the institutions that have been built over time and which we know are nothing but America and European tagged, like the IMF and World Bank, then I think Africa would have run away a long time ago. But because we still have these institutions where the bulk of our so-called development money comes from, that is why you see the kind of relationship that we have as Africa with America and European Union. But I am not a Jewish prophet, but I can tell you that not far away from now, in just a couple of years, the shape of our relationship with the arrogant America and European Union, who think they can go into their parliament and start debating the politics on the African continent and decide on how they are going to channel the kind of so-called trade loans, whatever the nature of loans that they do give, because I have listened attentively to European Union Parliament, for instance. I have heard the MPs debate and even sound out warnings that unless African countries behave in terms of democracy in this manner, then we have got our influence in terms of how much money we are going to give them, and we're also going to direct how that money is going to be used. Do you have correctly said yourself here that was it day one, day two, where they said we are going to emphasize going through civil society, and it will be private partnership in terms of our relations with you. Now, civil society organizations, in majority of the cases, these were NGOs and etc., have also created alternative centers of power, whereby there are governments parallel to the governments elected by the people. Now, when you empower such institutions, such organizations with money, resources, and the majority of them are actually centers of they are spying networks for their governments. When you look at these big NGOs that we have got across the African continent, and they are not there, by the way, in
the US?
Europe, yes. in America. They are only good here. Now that tells you.
For me, I have actually, like I've been always been open on that one. I said, if I'm your neighbor, and I'm say, look, I'm going to give you money this time for Christmas, but that money is going to be given to your wife. I'll give it to your wife. She will decide what to buy in the house, and but at the end of
I think wife is better to your son.
Or a house girl.
Something like that.
So, as a man in the house, it is not the problem that someone is able to do that, but it's the problem that you are not able to stop that. Because then you can say, if it means not having money for this Christmas, let me not have it, but I'll have other ways of filling that gap. But also, the African presidents, African governments have this high appetite for this money.
If it was going for correct purposes, that would be but you see, let me just make a short statement here. You see, it's not that, and this is where I get a problem with some of our political analysts here, to think that Africa is completely powerless. I know we are weak, yes, and when you admit, then you admit you have a problem, and you are working, it will inform your next step. And our next step is how to work on our weaknesses. And I can assure you, judging by the trends on the African continent, we are certainly working on our weaknesses. But the rate at which we are working on our weaknesses and as to when we shall be successful is another debate altogether. But the most important thing is that Africa recognizes that she's weak. She's weak economically, and they pointed out gaps. They said one of the biggest gaps is that we have got almost less than 15% intra-trade amongst ourselves. And as long as we get our money, because you see, when you trade with a partner who simply gives you money, determines how much you should take to her and how much you should cost the product, then you get a problem that the resources are going to be, the money coming to your country is going to be known. So, The Africa recognized that and said no. The wisdom that came to our African leaders was that no, let us increase the trade amongst ourselves so that we can generate the money from within the continent.
Now, the other issue that we also need to look at that, of course, I think while these guys were in, after or even before they went, your friend Nani of the Gambia was almost on the run because his government was almost overtaken. But when you consider the strong economies on the African continent, when you look at Egypt, you look at Nigeria, you look at South Africa, you look at
strong.
Exactly.
Ethiopia. When we have got episodes of famine,
exactly.
In some of these countries we are talking about episodes of civil disobedience and uprisings that actually bring down governments. And we are talking about them being stronger economies. Anyway,
Ramaphosa was almost thrown out because ANC is not delivering. The social services are in free fall. How can the most important economy on the continent also have these rolling, persistent, unrelenting power blackouts? How?
The largest economy in Nigeria experiences in the north. The Boko Haram,
Nigeria has failed to resolve that power blackout issue also.
Exactly.
Not only that.
The presence of generators in Nigeria will just, in some of these cities, especially like Lagos, will just blow off your mind.
Exactly.
They don't have a single refinery.
So really, why, if I'm America sitting here looking at people who are scampering for
the kind of confusion that is
definitely, I would take that.
Where would the respect come from?
So how do I respect a man who is flying in a Gulf Stream and but back at home,
his own palace is in the dark?
Yeah,
Surely.
but also let us not forget the bigger picture, that some of these civil uprisings, some of these miscalculations within the economy, getting the micro economic questions wrong has got a lot to do with the handwork, the invisible handwork of the white man. And if you want that,
yeah, but of course we are saying that's not going to go away anytime soon.
They will never give you a big
It's true that it's not going to go away easily. I want to qualify that statement. It's not going to go away easily. But it's not that we are not. You see, the most important thing to solving a problem is that are you aware that the problem is there? Now, Africa is at a stage where there is a critical growing mass of people who are intellectually empowered to diagnose the problem. Now, I don't want to be like Kosara, who wrote in Darkness at Noon that we have diagnosed the problem with microscopic exactness. But every time we apply a healing knife, a new sore appears. Africa seems to have diagnosed the problem with almost microscopic exactness. But every time we try to apply a healing knife, there is a new wound that emerges. Because the question is, when are we going to hold that healing knife and ensure that there is no new wound that is going to appear?
We can learn from other countries that definitely have done that and have been successful. We can learn from Korea, for example. They at one point
that Korea is
what kind of healing knife? Maybe it was a panda.
You are talking about South Korea. Not that Korea, I can assure you, and this is now provoking us into a wider debate. I can assure you that South Korea, with all due respect, may be the 7th largest economy,
something like that.
Around there.
It's around the 15th.
But I can assure you that if it was not for a deliberate policy by America to open the American market to the products that are coming from Seoul, and that is also for a purpose, to make sure that they undermine the unification of North and South. To check on the influence and the power of China.
But
that they can
position themselves. Yes, they position themselves. So why are you not positioning yourself?
Actually, Korea didn't position herself. The Americans positioned Korea for their own reasons. But it is also good news I will agree with you that even when they were positioned in that manner, the Koreans themselves also said, since we seem to be having scores to settle with China and our brothers in the north, is no problem. For us, let us play ball. Let's play ball. We shall go into our electrical appliances. We shall sell to you. Almost, I can assure you that almost 80% of the electric appliances or the electronics that are produced in Korea go find their way.
But that is exactly, that's what we are saying, that Africa now needs to look at that and say, okay, China, you are coming. America, you are coming. Russia, you are coming. But
go to Vietnam now. Exactly. You look at Vietnam, the Vietnamese economy. After America had ravaged that country through that war, or it has decided to set base, or the manufacturing sector of America is in Vietnam. You see where the economy is now going.
So my question is... Other than that, Mr. Mututa, going along those very same lines, it is us who are failing to take advantage of these dynamics.
Exactly.
For the simple reason, look at one of the things that were treated rather lightly and at the very end of the Africa-America Summit was this issue of food security and the issue of food systems. But how can that be on day 3? Isn't that at the center of where we are? To be in a crisis where we have the most arable land on earth, but we can't feed ourselves in most cases.
You even go to America.
Very embarrassing.
For someone,
I agree with you.
Why would a country like Ukraine, which has a fraction of our arable land, be able to feed all of Africa and most of the world? So what we are saying is, if these people were good partners, they would put all their effort in boosting African food security and related food systems. Because after all, agribusiness and related offshoots, by 2030, it will be an economy of $1 trillion by itself. And we're talking Africa.
Exactly.
So if America was genuine, for 10 years to bolster food security, because that is where Africa has the most natural advantages.
Our cooperative advantage is there. Even if, by the way, even if they deposited it in Africa Development Bank, and they said, okay, let's monitor you. Let's see what you can do.
But instead, if they're going to give you that money, they will make sure it buys guns and tanks from them to make sure it runs their industries while they do the havoc where you are.
Exactly.
So unless we discover that these people will never have our interests at heart and that we have to play ball to our advantage, then the game will have begun.
That's the point.
And there is no way the Americans and their cousins are going to feel for Africa when they know that you must be kept as a source of raw materials for their industries to be sustained. And like Naomi Chomsky says in his book, Facts, Cold War, and Facts and Fancy, he says that if there is going to be no war on the African continent, we shall ensure that we create these wars for purposes of feeding our own factories and making sure that we keep getting this revenue. And this is, I think, what Rachel was driving at. I can see the passion and the anger. You see, when you have got Africa with over 65% of her land as arable,
the most
that
in the
could,
world,
that
really.
could even be underestimated, probably at
Exactly.
72.
Yeah, because most of the places in
and
Africa
then
still...
you are a net food importer. You are a net food importer. That a crisis of the small magnitude like COVID-19 happens, and you get majority of North Africa who are into bread going to African Union to beg that they can release the little Ukraine and Russia should be considerate, and they allow the wheat to come so that they can have bread and other associated foodstuffs that come from the wheat. More so, you have got a situation where we have now opened our land to all sorts of unchecked fertilizers, which are damaging our soils. As a consequence, we are also giving away our natural, traditional seed to the unconvincing and non-persuasive seed companies like Seed Farm, Monsanto, and all those certainly do not have, and also Merinda and Bill Gates, they inject in a lot of money. I remember before the death of our former General Secretary, UN General Secretary Kofi Annan, who had they had established a company, a very huge company, where lots of money from the Merinda family, Bill Gates, were channeled to do research into seeds. That is now Bill Gates for you. If you knew him in Microsoft, you think again.
You know, he's the largest private landowner in America.
There you go. And at the same time, also remember that he is into virus. He's the biggest researcher in virus. Now he's into seeds. The moment our seeds, and which is the plan, by the way, through these GMOs, the moment our seeds are captured and we can no longer be able to replant season after season, get our seeds for the next season, that is another biological or food warfare. The moment we are captured in as far as food is concerned, I can assure you that we are going to be completely wiped out, and the white man is going to come and take over this country.
Yeah, because as long as we continue having this type of weak policies, weak leaders, like your friend, why didn't he attend the African summit, by the way?
Which one?
Ramaphosa.
I said he had troubles. Remember, these are the ANC.
There was a fire in his
backyard.
Remember,
the bulk of ANC supporters are totally dissatisfied with the performance of ANC. In fact, last election, they had they lost the most ground in the last election.
Yeah, in most of the regions.
There are people who don't know if they will secure a majority in this coming election. So what
they
we are
will
saying,
struggle. They will struggle.
Tooth and nail. But the long and the short is that these people are not delivering. Remember, they fought the white man for many, many years, saying the white man is the problem, the reason why the resource base is narrow, the reason why all our lands have been overtaken. Every evil was on the white man.
But I think Africa has problems, really.
Of course it does.
No, we recognize the fact that we have the problems. We are not saying we don't have the problems. Now we should be thinking of how. Now these problems, because when you look at all the programs at African Union, I can assure you from whatever directorate or department you want to look at, they do concede that we have got problems. We have problems in security, we have problems in the economy, we have problems in the trade, we have problems in education and health. We know all of those, and we have set up units. The question is, what the units we have set up,
for example,
are they functioning?
For example, Ramaphosa came to power on the ticket of non-compliance to corruption.
Okay.
That he was going to fight corruption tooth to nail until at least ANC is sanitized. And the other time they suspended the Secretary General of the party, Magashule. Now Magashule also says, if you are suspending me, the president should also be suspended.
Okay.
Now, as that was happening, this man is in his sofa sets. A president.
Who was
checking
his sofa set again?
His enemies, of course.
After they stole the money, then the rumor came out they have stolen $4 million.
No, but the man who was hot on his trail was he was a key figure in the Zuma administration. So he had an axe to grind with this man. Remember, he drove away Zuma, saying he was corrupt. So this man was careful to keep track of this so-called clean man. Whether he's clean or not is another issue. What we are saying is that, like you were saying, diagnosing our problems is no longer good enough.
Exactly.
You see, a decade ago, 4 decades ago, we were saying our problem is the white man. All our evils rest at the white man's feet. The man, he has retreated for a while.
Exactly.
Yes, he's in the shadows, but he's no longer at the forefront. So now we are saying we have our problems. When will you start solving them? even the one issue, corruption, is not moving. You campaigned long and hard to remove Zuma. Even that one, how many years now in his Chisanja, Mr. Ramaphosa?
Ramaphosa is this his first term?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But it's nearing an end.
It's nearing.
So,
It's nearing.
even that one, you're not making any movement. So, if you cannot move one issue, how will you move 5? Remember South Africa is saying social amenities are poor. They're saying power blackouts. They're saying crime is... If you cannot solve one, even Zuma, you cannot deliver justice. That case is not moving.
Yeah, because then the problem...
How can you solve
much as we have someone, a wizard in the backyard, we also have issues that needs to be addressed as Africans. We may be blaming the rest of the world. Of course, they are not our cousins, they are not our friends. You don't expect them, no, not our relatives. You don't expect them to do a lot for us. They are even well off better if we are doing badly. But we need also to do the soul searching as Africans. Issues of corruption, issues of nepotism, issues of all these issues. Can't we even tackle one conclusively?
That is a very big problem for the simple fact. And this issue is not just good for the South African case. I have an axe to grind with these liberation movements. Some of them came militarily, others came civil action and so on.
Yes.
But their legacy is the same. If you check out Frelimo, they fought their way to power. Look at what they are doing. The reason why there's been an outbreak of violence in northern Mozambique, the people who are part of Al-Qaeda, I think, Al-Qaeda in Africa,
Yes.
they say they're disenfranchised. You see that place has a lot of many minerals. And they're saying...
There is also the gas.
Yes. Where the Portuguese left is what Frelimo was doing. Now you have empowered the big shots in Frelimo to steal the gold that the Portuguese used to steal.
Exactly.
To steal the diamonds.
The only difference that it's now us who are stealing from ourselves.
And when the former colonizer comes in and frames up the already inframed, dissatisfied sections of the society, then we blame the colonizer.
Exactly.
His interest is that you may actually get more disunited, create a civil war, and then he employs his machine of siphoning out the gold and other minerals that we are talking about.
But you see, Mr. Mututa, I was saying that South Africa is not the only one with the problem. Look at these, and the case is clear. Then you have the case of Angola. Angola, you had this UNITA that was fighting against the ruling, what is it called? The ruling party in Angola.
Yeah.
It escapes my... But anyway, these people also waged this long battle against the colonizers, the Portuguese. They finally took them down, but we are back in that same cycle. Look at what the late Eduardo dos Santos, look at his daughter, who now is, they are asking that she be repatriated to answer for the massive theft of resources under the stewardship of her own father.
Exactly.
And her brother also, I think for him is serving jail time, for having transferred $500 million out of state coffers to his own private accounts. What we are saying, these people spend all the time saying they're fighting to dislodge the evils brought on by the white man. But clearly the white man is not the problem. We are our problem.
We are the problem.
And the story repeats itself. In many other forums, there is RPF here in Rwanda, even in RM. They're saying some of the things that you said were the very reasons why you waged these vicious wars. They have come back bigger and better. So why don't we learn?
In other words, I also bring up a suggestion that some of the post-independence political movements,
the post-colonial
yes,
African governments
are partly the problem why we are today.
Of course. The problem was never diagnosed. He talked about self-examination. As Africans, we refuse to self-examine ourselves. We keep doing the same thing. If I took office today and you came in tomorrow, I can predict without fear of contradiction that you will do exactly what I did. Because we never take stock. We never know, we never say, okay, Ndugu Rugarama came to power saying he will get rid of cows in Uganda, if cows are the problem.
But now, does that also, the other thing that comes into play is that, and that's why sometimes we talked about this issue some time back, the issue of having clan political parties. Because if we had a political party in Africa, maybe the credentials would have been higher than what we look at today. We normally have these political parties when it comes to election times, and that once we get to power, we can easily forget, because that was just a vehicle to drive us to get where we are going. And you can.
No, but Comrade Mtuta, this is what it is. The post-colonial African state is still a captured state. It is weak because it is captured. It is not organic, it is not indigenous. The political parties that you are talking about are in majority of the cases being headed front and rear by the persons whose credentials have got a lot to say in the right. You go to ANC and look at the people who have headed some of those, the ANC as a party, and you will hear that if, for instance, you are a former member of the organization to do with miners' rights, somehow you were collaborating with the Jupiters. You go to save for a few, like for instance, Chama cha Mapinduzi here in Tanzania. But majority of the political parties that we have had on the African continent, including DRC here, where we have had more than 200 political parties. And we call that a measure, a standard measure of democracy. I can assure you that in those political parties, be it in the DRC or even here in Uganda, majority of the political parties that we have had, whether we want to sanitize them by calling them Uganda People's Congress or Democratic Party, you will find that what defines them is that you are a Catholic and you are a Muganda, then you qualify to be a member of the Democratic Political Party or its leader. If not that, you are a UPC regardless, but at least it is unheard of that a UPC is going to be headed by a Catholic or a Muslim, because that is not the culture. Now, as long as you have got the post-independent political parties that later on would usher in, what was the religious affiliation of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah? What was his religion?
He didn't have a religion.
Why didn't you get to know about it? Simply because it was not important. The agenda that these fellows were articulating was bigger and better than a religion which is even not ours.
Yes.
So we get a problem that we have got post-independent states with the leadership that is characterized by religionism, clanism, and all those are elements of ideological bankruptcy. That you have got a situation whereby you will reach a point and you are no longer looking at the interests of the people, but you will be looking at if Rachel is a Catholic or an Anglican, if Mututa is a Muslim or a Seventh-day, if Rugarama is an Anglican or a Buddhist. Now, at the end of the day, the social services, the health sector, the education sector is not going to be chewed by me being a Buddhist or a Catholic.
Yeah, but now the problem...
The values must be emphasized, and we seem not to be having our own values because the values were captured right from when we were colonized, and when we seemed to have overpowered the white man, going through fighting to attain the so-called geographical independence, we seem not to have diagnosed the problem properly. The crop of the leaders at that time, the Kwame Nkrumahs of that time, the Patrice Lumumba, here the ideology to cure the problem that was besetting Africa were eliminated faster.
But of course, the problem also comes in with the elites, the elite group.
The middle class.
Yes, the middle class that we so wish to create and have. That the disorientation, ideological disorientation has continued. Because even at that very beginning, when you look at the Kwame Nkrumahs, at the founding fathers on the African continent, were betrayed by our own.
There is a very powerful statement, let me not forget it. There is one of our colleagues, he is a Cameroonian. He has said that the white man, or any other person for that matter, would not and cannot be able to colonize or promote the neo-colonial agenda on the African continent without using and going through a black man.
Exactly.
And that one, I could not have said it any better. The problem we seem to be having, and I said it last time here on the show, Rachel was not with us. I said the problem is we seem to be having on the African continent, and that is the biggest problem, and it was repeated by Comrade Osman in Nigeria, is not that we have a problem of not being able to write and read. We have got a crop of people with ability to read, write very good French, very good English, but the ability to analyze, think through problems, develop the techniques of overcoming these problems, they don't have that. Now, they are the people who are put in power by the colonial master using remote control to manage the rest of the society. And I can assure you, like you are expressing pessimism here, I want to be optimistic though, that although we have got a growing presence of those leaders who are shopped, they are fished from here, taken to some of the universities in Europe and America, given the training in Yale, Oxford, Harvard, and then they come back here, they are going into the political sphere, they are going into the Bank of Uganda, they are in these other commercial banks, they are in different departments, ministries. We are fighting GMOs, but I can assure you, when you look at the crop, in a bigger majority of ministries of agriculture or across the African countries who are going to be making decisions, when you look at the ability of our parliamentarians and you see where Bill Gates is putting the money, just tomorrow, they are going to wake up and they will pass the GMO bill and we shall not be having seeds. Just the other day in the Ministry of Agriculture, you are going to have the Minister of Agriculture in Ethiopia, Minister of Agriculture in Djibouti, in Uganda, in Kenya, telling his technical team that this is the best way. After all, he's even a graduate, by the way, of their university. So the mind, decolonizing the mind, the moment we are unable and we are progressively losing ground there, we are progressively reaching a state whereby we are unable to learn in order to learn that our ways are better than the white man's ways, because the white man's ways cannot be the best for us.
Still, again, we come back to the other point. China, for example, has been sending students to US for a long time. They had a plan to go and learn, to come and unlearn.
Yes, to go and learn. Actually, this is very good. The problem with China and America has not been any other. You hear of the piracy, the copyright piracy. from the infancy. What China does is that it has got a very big presence. I don't know if you watched the security team around Barack Obama when he visited China as a sitting president of America. All these boys were Chinese. You see, but they're Americans. And they're in CIA. They're in the system.
But even if he was to come here, he would have black ones.
Exactly, and this is what I've been telling the Africans.
That's America now for you. They go beyond, and they develop that. For them, they are not going to fight you directly.
Yes.
When they know that they can have, they are not wars that are going to be fought using a pen, they are not going to bring katyushas. They go that way. Anyway, the point I wanted to make here is that the problem that has been with mainly China and America is that the Chinese have developed a better way of fighting their enemy. They are going to send in, like you are saying, they are going to send in the parents who are actually going to even produce children from America, and they are Americans, but when in actual sense they are Chinese.
Exactly.
What China does is develop the technology right from the infancy. Be with the American, after all, who is the original American anyway?
There's no American.
Either you are an American as you saw Arbarho. Arbarho is a Ugandan. Actually, the one who develops this shuttle here, this air-borne space technology.
Yeah.
He's just a boy from Chamuhunga, but he's an American. His father, the late Arbarho, just died not long ago.
Yeah.
Now, the point I'm making is that China...
But that is where China is focused. And this is what my pain is. As Africans, why can't we also identify our bright young women and young men? Send them to go and acquire the knowledge that we want in a focused manner, not everyone. Because
very good idea, but that will not happen. That is what actually... You see the education system of North Korea, DPRK? DPRK develops a crop of their children right from nursery.
Yes, from
they say
home.
for you, you are going to be into biology, you are going to be into chemistry, you are going to be into mathematics, and they train them up. So the people who are actually making arguments here that DPRK does not have nuclear weapons, that they are not given right, they can't hit Washington, think again. Let America try. They know.
But also, along those very same lines, I think to answer your question, one of the things, there are many things Africans don't do well. And there are many things that,
they don't want to do simply.
That white people also don't do well.
Exactly.
But a focused strategy is not something that we do well. You see these people, they start this something, and the eye is on 50 years from now. It is not on tomorrow. It is not on 10 years from now. It's 50.
Actually,
so the discipline and the rigor and the investment is something in which we are wanting.
Exactly.
You see, we start something. Talk about some of these day-to-day things that we do around here. You'll hear an announcement. Traffic police is going to do this, and it will until this one is done. 2 days.
Things have disappeared.
It's gone.
Because why?
It is a plague. We don't complete anything that we start.
I can't agree with you more than that, because you remember, even again referring to this meeting when they were in the US, you could hear a lot of sideline meetings.
Over what in particular?
And someone said, but by the way, I'm told Congo now finally secured the lift on the arms embargo, that they can now buy arms as a government.
But even arms were going to DRC. Even this embargo is just on paper.
But I think what is even more painful, along those same lines, is that for Mr. Kagame to secure an invitation, he had to stop what they say he does in Congo. In other words, it takes Blinken, who's the Foreign Affairs Minister of America, to call, if it is true, and say stop.
You either stop or we stop you.
The peers, we can't even listen to our peers. These leaders around here have been saying the same thing. No movement. It keeps getting worse. Until the other person says, look, to come to my meeting, you stop playing in your neighbor's backyard. How pathetic. It's bad.
That is it. And then you look at, I see people crossing saying, for me as my country, would, in other words, if you are going to scoop that law, that you are going to bargain as your country, then you also have to be able to make certain sacrifices. And these sacrifices are not going to be for the best of the rest of Africa.
And that is where we go wrong. Your little unit of a country will never get you where you need to go. We don't understand that it's the collective that will deliver results. Europe has remained struggling to gain in numbers. We are continually struggling to remain little, weak, unsustainable units. No wonder why we are treated badly when we go to foreign capitals.
But like I said, Ndugu Mtuta, I think where I take comfort is in the fact that Africa has woken up. Yes, you can blame her for having slept for too long. But when a child finally wakes up and begins doing the correct things, and that doesn't mean that it's like saying I have gotten saved. It doesn't mean that sin situations will not be, actually you will get more temptations when you declare that you are saved to draw you back into sin than you had before. Now Africa has woken up. It is setting up all sorts of manner of institutions to address some of these ills that used to afflict her. And we can only give our support, morally and otherwise, by making sure that we put more energy and support our leaders. Of course, now, again, you will realize that some of these institutions that have been set up to address our problems as Africa are also going to be attacked left and right. We are talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Britain recently gave about 38 million USD, was it billion something USD, for purposes of having a foot. The only negotiated agreement that makes sense was between African Union, was between the Africa Free Continental Trade Area with China. That they put in a lot of effort. They structured how they are going to be trading. Then the other good news is that we seem to be having, reaching a point where we know what our problems are. Like the element of nutrition and that GMO. African Union created a unit. They said this must address the food security situation and nutrition. And they are making sure, because the issue of who funds what is also critical. We talked about it here. They are making sure that they find a way of closing the leakages. Because one of the leakages on the African continent was that we have got a very high conversion rate. In doing business, we do business because we don't have a uniform currency, then we end up spending a lot of money. For instance, converting a shilling into a naira because we are going to trade with a Nigerian. Converting a kwacha into, for instance, what we call, what is this money? Simply because, so the now coming up with the Pan-African currency mechanism, whereby the conversion is that money which we used to lose over 500 million USD annually through converting currency trade is going to. So you can see some of these problems that we are talking about, which were very real on the African face, are being addressed. And the issue, for instance, of language, because we have always argued that, no, Africa does not have a uniform language, and as long as we keep, of course, that is also shallow Pan-Africanism, because I've always given an example that we don't have to be uniform, like, for instance, the Koreans, our friends, are uniform and speaking that language. Even in Cuba, not everybody there is Spanish, but they speak Spanish. Why? It is a medium of communication for purposes of achieving their own potential. So the bottom line here is, to me, that we have correctly examined our problems.
Okay.
Not that we have completely finished examining them, but those that we have examined, we have provided correct solutions. We are simply now working on achieving the complete solutions to our own problems.
The 2 weeks when Rachel was not here, we were talking about many issues, and that Africa needs to wake up. And we also did analyze that Africa is not as bad as things seem to look, but it is that sensitivity and the commitment with which we do our whichever things that we are doing. For example, we were having debates here about football. I was telling Rugarama, I said football is not my in thing, and thank God it ended. But even as it ended,
we are going back to Premiership.
Of course, but at least as the World Cup ended, there were already cries of racism. That's true, because I remember the French guys were being called monkeys after they missed the penalties. I could hear that, but I was also wondering,
why didn't they call them monkeys when they had a 2-goal deficit being overturned?
But why did they also miss goals?
It is part of the game.
You say you think it was that the whites didn't want them, so that they had to miss goals. No, these are things we are talking about. That Africans also sometimes let's also look at ourselves and blame ourselves.
But who's an African? Remember, these people were born French there and bred there. So who's an African?
Apart from the color which you seem to share with them, the culture is totally different.
No.
No, the man looks like you, but he's not you. He was born there, he was bred there. So what makes him an African?
And I'm quoting the president of Ghana when in his recent address said, it doesn't matter. As long as you are a black man, you are an African.
That's a lie. It is a lie.
That's a big talk. That's a big talk.
No, it is a lie for the simple reason. It's just like claiming that the whites of South Africa are Britons.
They are not. The whites of South Africa, actually even themselves, are saying they are not South Africans. You know, they are demanding for.
They brought a petition to ask for their independent country, but of course.
Then they need to be put into the Indian Ocean and stay there.
I don't want to use some of these harsh words, but of course that one is not is an non-starter. The point really we are making here is that one, the issue of identity, maybe next time we will craft a topic here and we debate identity. You see, at
more than the color.
What is identity? You see, at the end of the day, what is identity? Is identity color? For instance,
you've just been talking about some of our leaders
who
routinely sell us. Are they Africans?
Someone is constantly whispering in your ears that after all, you are an African. So whether for you claim you are a Frenchman or whatever, doesn't matter. Still, they will refer you to be an African.
Maybe you look like them, but you're not. You see, being an African is not thing.
It's
an environment thing. It is a perception thing. That is why you can have a white man who's more African than yourself.
Yes.
You know, I have.
Actually, in the Pan-African ranks, this is what we are trying to do. In our program of repatriating our brothers and sisters from wherever they are, with a very big package where we are going to be inducting them into the African culture. They must be culturalized.
But you will not manage that problem. Their mentality is twisted.
That's what we're saying.
Yes, a long time.
We shall try. You see, it's better to try and love and fail rather than never to have tried at all.
There's this thing of saying, you know, and I've heard this from some of the Americans, that this issue of either you are a man or a woman is just a matter of a mindset. You decide.
That is also a sickness.
No, that one is not true.
That mental that is sickness.
We are talking about biology. What I mean, what I say
it's the same thing I'm talking to. That an African man, an African is an African.
No. Let me give you an example.
Culture plays a very important role.
Mr. Obama looks like you because he's light-skinned. Not like me, but like you two. But in his thinking, in his mentality, his approach,
the way of doing
his
things.
upbringing, he is not an African in any way.
Does that stop him from being an African?
Yes.
Yes.
Why?
He is of this, he looks like me.
There is the
but
way
he's
of
not
thinking,
like me.
this is what I was telling you, the Americans, the issue of saying, I think I'm a man today, tomorrow I'm a woman.
That is sickness,
That,
like
of
Roger
course,
said.
And that's what
so
we
we're
are
talking
saying.
about the sickness, that and this is what Nduguru Garaba is talking about here, that this sickness must be detoxicated
Yes.
from these people
And
to
also,
understand.
by extension, what we are saying, the argument that Obama is an African is also sick.
I love.
He is not. He looks like you, but he's not.
But
You have to listen to Malcolm X. Our comrade Malcolm X, in debating the freed slave and the home slave, you will get the idea of identity. Very, 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 very important. Identity is absolutely not your color. Identity is a whole complex of your opinion, your attitude, your
perception,
how you perceive the world, and how you move in the world.
Even.
And that's why we have this issue, especially in America again, of people saying, I'm a black American, but I'm not an African.
Which is right.
You
Anyway,
are
you're black,
you
not
are
an
not a
American.
Mugisu.
Viewer,
You are not a Mugisu simply because you are called Mututa.
Viewer, we have to come to the end of this. I know it has been a very interesting discussion here, but we have to go because more programs are coming and our time is up. But we will continue hearing from you and listening to you. But also, we thank you for the time you have been with us. It has not been easy for us, especially for in Kampala. Rain was too much this morning, and I'm sure outside there it is still cold. But we thank you for the time that you have spent with us. And don't go away because UBC is coming on again with more programs like we did tell you from the beginning. But now we have to go. We thank you for being with us. I thank our production team, all that who have been able to bring this program to you, and we till next weekend. I think this is one of the last Fridays that we're having in the year 2020, and we thank you for being with us all this long, and we wish you the best of the new year, and we shall continue looking at what makes us Africans. Are we defined by color? Are we defined by being the mindset? Thank you so much, and we wish you a lovely day and a nice weekend.